Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Athletes are not the only ones, of course, to have endured the leaking of private information this week. Private emails from the former US Secretary of State Colin Powell, in which he was less than flattering about both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, are private no more. And donors to the Democratic Party, who expected their largesse to remain secret, have also been outed. Tons of information released by unknown hackers. How much should be in the public realm and how much is actually in the public interest? Professor Jonathan Zittrain is faculty director at the Berkman Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University, and he joins us now from Boston. Professor, we seem to be moving very quickly from a world in which whistleblowers and hackers seem to act because they felt they should, into a world in which people are accessing and releasing this information simply because they can.
Well, I think that's right. And it's not just simply because they can, because they may have their own agendas in mind. And that might mean they access a big trove of email or something else and then selectively release what they like to create a mosaic, each piece of which may be true, but where the overall collection ends up suggesting something false. And it's also striking to me how much as the public, we've gotten used to it. We take it in a matter of course that the private emails of a private citizen essentially just talking to his friends about his opinions of the candidates, we just take it in stride that, oh, of course we're entitled to see that once they've been left on the doorstep of our news organizations.
So you're suggesting there's no sort of moral compass at play on the part of the people releasing the information. In fact, quite the opposite. Obviously, we could all be a little bit more careful with our private communication, but none of us can ever be completely safe.
Well, I think it is, it may be true, but it is quite dangerous to think that the end of the discussion is, well, that'll teach him to have used email. I mean, electronic communication is now part of all our lives. I don't think we want to return to having to treat any communication that could embarrass us, should it be made public, as something to be conducted in a park as if it were a drug transaction or something. And it's either that or it would mean having to become official selves. Once you become U.S. Secretary of State, I guess you're that forever and have to start acting as if you're on a news program, even when you're talking simply to your friends. And that seems to me quite corrosive of a free society.
So yeah, I mean, a cessation of privacy once you become public. Is there any way to stop it?
Well, I think there may be some longer-term remedies. The fact that we still have email in essentially the form it was in the 1990s, it's time to figure out ways to upgrade it. That could include, for example, having our trove of email going back years that might be accumulated in an online account because the storage is cheap. It shouldn't just be available ready to leak like the Exxon Valdez through a couple keystrokes should a hacker get the account. For that kind of general slurping of everything, there might be a way to have it what they'd be calling it as glacial storage, that eyebrows get raised, digitally speaking, if somebody is asking for everything.
What would you personally consider to be a sort of legitimate hack, so to speak?
Well, there are times when a system itself has enough issues, enough corruption. I mean, anything that gets into the hands of the press as the fourth estate as a function of whistleblowing might be a candidate to say, well, while the means of getting it was a little unusual or even bad, it's sunlight being a disinfectant. But this is not some revelation of corruption by a public official. This is private correspondence by a private citizen. And if we say, well, you may be a private citizen, but you're a public figure, that starts to, I think, bleach into looking at celebrity leaks of their photo accounts or something and say, well, they decided to become celebrities, they had it coming. I think that's an incredibly ungenerous, dehumanizing sort of attitude that will mean that the only people who seek the spotlight are people who, for whatever reason, would be inured to having their private selves completely dissected. And that may not be representative the range of people we want taking public office.
Well, it might reflect the zeitgeist, though. An awful lot of the most prominent celebrities on the planet seem not just comfortable, but positively committed to the notion of sharing every aspect of their existence with their fans.
Well, I think, as you suggest, there's a form of Darwinian selection going on,
yes,
where maybe those who would pursue the exposure are ones who, for whatever reasons, crave it. But even they may be carefully cultivating an image and have smaller and smaller spaces in which to explore, identify, and express their true selves. And when that's the case, I think the opportunity to bring one's humanity into a job, into a role, or to be a role model that way becomes quite limited. And I think to allow our cynicism to start to equate genuine whistleblowing with any form of hack of anybody and just treat it as any other form of data as if we were reading a history from 100 years ago, that strikes me as very corrosive to a free society.
Professor Jonathan Zittrain, thank you so much for your time.